All right, everybody, welcome back to the program. This is Josh with the Political Pulpit. I'm your host, and we're going live just a little bit earlier today because there's some new developments that I think is swirling around online, and we want to get in as soon as possible. And why is this so important to us, you may ask, and why do we keep talking about this? One, I think because mainly everybody wants to know the truth, and two, we've been really good friends with the Turning Point family, and especially the Turning Point faith. And Charlie's mission was that of the gospel, and it was very important to us because that's what he preached. We've even participated in a lot of his Turning Point Faith in Action activities and meetings and the pastoral roundtables that they have at the end of every year. And that's just to say some of the smaller things why we care. One, I think the truth will always prevail, and as the Bible says, will set you free, and that's what we're after. But as you all know, today on the Charlie Kirk Show, they put a little segment together for Candace Owens, finally addressing the things that she is saying. So we're going to leave that up to you all to decide and run through some of that stuff. We don't have a lot of time to go live, but I wanted just to kind of review what was said during the show today on the Charlie Kirk Show. And then, of course, Candace Owens has a fiery response. So we'll get back to that in just a few moments.
We pray for love and unity, and that the church would find new zeal and commitment to the mission and purpose of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
You're a liar! You're a liar!
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart.
That there was a response today from finally our friends at Turning Point. And of course, Candace didn't waste any time. She responded. A lot of our good friends were even those that are influencers that are online saying, Candace, where is the proof? And you might be asking, where is the proof? A lot of accusations, a lot of flight logging and, loopholes and rabbit holes and whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of stuff going on, but what is the truth? And I guess the best way to figure this out is put Candace and Turning Point in the room, and we might just see that. And I am excited about that, of course. There are some other things going on in the world that we'll try to touch on with news in the government, of course, the United States, and some global stuff that I think is very important for all of us to continue to pray over, pray about, and be watchful of. All right, before we continue, let us hit that like, share, follow, and subscribe button wherever you are watching us. Right now, we're live on Facebook. Get in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from, or if you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching from X, you can start hitting that reply or repost. Of course, we're on Rumble. And then our good friends at OnlySource. Of course, OnlySource. We want to make sure that you join us on OnlySource. You can download that app and get a whole lot of other content, Christian conservative content. There's even prophecy in the news. There's a lot of stuff on OnlySource that you don't want to miss out on, from Dave Robbins to Vince Stigall and Doug Norvell. We want to thank everybody at OnlySource for allowing us to be there with you. All right. Greetings from Philly. So good to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We will continue to post our comments as they come in. All right. So let's get into this. As you guys know, that Charlie Kirk show has still been going on. Different people host it, and they've just kind of kept pressing on. And many of us have wondered, why haven't we heard anything from the Turning Point camp? Why aren't they addressing specifically Candace Owens? After all, she's saying some wild things that seem absolutely ridiculous, but also very convinced. She's very convicted on what she's saying. Her passion is unmatched. Her pursuit for the truth is very, very intentional. So all the things that she's saying seem crazy to us, but maybe she's onto something, or something's terribly wrong with Candace Owens. Somebody go check on her if that's the case. But then you wonder, why isn't Turning Point addressing it? Because we all thought that Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens were good friends, and that she was good friends with the Turning Point family. But she's gone down the list of some pretty important, amazing, and I think wholesome people that are very good Christians, very good conservative people, and listing them as either complicit or knowing about what happened to Charlie or benefiting from the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So what do we do? Well, I think you do what Charlie would have done, and that's talk to the source and talk to these people. As a matter of fact, not only do you talk to them, but you sit down in front of the cameras and put on the television lights, the broadcast lights, and put the streams on live and let it fly. Let's find out. Let Candace Owens look at whoever it is in the face, and in reverse, let Turning Point answer all the questions, because, man, she's really digging deep. She's going in as deep as you possibly can go. That's even to donor money, tax filings, records, public records. She's gone on and on. Flight logs, Egyptian planes, government vehicles going to a specific location where all the three-letter agencies reside, including her own law firm that she uses, and all these different channels and acts and ways to find the truth. But yet, I'll repeat what a good friend, Graham Allen, who's an amazing patriot, says: Candace, show the proof. And even this last bit of the information where she was saying that there's a hit on herself, there's a hit on Candace from the government of France. That's also a huge claim. And if that's the case, why hasn't the government said anything? Why isn't there anything coming from the top of all office, the anti-terrorism, whatever office that she said she spoke to, the FBI, the CIA? After all, she's had the president call her before. Why aren't there any indications that she's being protected, or that it's been noted, or that there's an investigation going on? Now, I don't want to completely dismiss Candace, because there are some things that make you go, there could be something there, because we know that this world is an evil place, and there are evil things that go on, and there are things that happen in this world that we probably would be utterly shocked if we found out exactly what happened in certain instances. There's the assassination of John F. Kennedy. There's the assassination of Bobby Kennedy Sr. There's assassination of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. All the different assassinations that have happened. Abe Lincoln. If we knew everything about those, which I don't know that we will ever know all the details and who was behind what, I think we would be shocked. Could we be finding ourselves in the same instance with our good friend Charlie Kirk, who has died a public death, a public execution in the worst possible way? And man, it was horrific. It was tragic. But he went out preaching the gospel. Nobody can refute those things. Nobody can refute that he did everything he needed to do and everything God called him to do. He went out and had conversations with the least likely, with the people that disagreed with him the most, with young people that were so impressionable from universities and from public learning that they had eventually fallen off and have crazy liberal ideas. Yes, he had conversations with those people and died doing just that. There's a good point out there that Charlie Kirk has hired amazing people on his team to say that all of those amazing people, or the people that he found confidence in, were out to get him, would say that Charlie didn't know what he was doing when he was picking his friends and his confidants and his partners and his business partners, and even taking in donors that were the driving mechanism to Turning Point. Did he lack discernment? Was he so smart and so genius that he missed a major mark when he brought people in around him? I don't think that's the case. And it's a good argument. It's a good argument that how could all the people, or maybe the closest people that Charlie trusted, turn on him? I believe they loved him dearly. I personally think, yes, some radical climbed on a roof and took the shot. Now, you can draw up why he did it, who he was partnered with, who influenced him. We can go all through all those different things. But in my opinion, I think it sounds too simple. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a little simple-minded. But I wouldn't be surprised if this crazy radical did what he did. And maybe, here's a great possibility, those that knew about it or suspected it pulled back. That's a huge possibility. But how would you ever find out the truth unless there's written communication, digital footprints, or some sort of tracking, paper trail, something that leads to those conversations of let's let him get on that roof. All right, want to get into this. It is the actual statement from the Charlie Kirk show. Let's check it out.
Say something important, something very important. For the past 2.5 months, there is a topic that has flooded our freedom inbox. It has been nonstop on social media, but which we have almost totally avoided on this show. You probably already know what I'm talking about, which shows just how ubiquitous it has been. Ever since Charlie's murder, Candace Owens has leveled a flood of allegations against people at Turning Point USA, people at Turning Point Action, and people who work for this show. She's made them against some of Charlie's closest friends and against some of his most dedicated employees. She has suggested that Michael McCoy, Charlie's chief of staff, knew Charlie would be murdered, was happy that he died, and stayed silent because he was told he would be the next Charlie. She has suggested Michael is not his real name. It is. I have seen his birth certificate myself. She has called it suspicious that Mikey's wife, who works at Turning Point, helped plan the campus tour event where Charlie was murdered, which she didn't, by the way. She doesn't work on campus events.
All right, I want to say something really quick in defense of Candace in a sense of being neutral, right? Just trying to sift through it all. The way it's stated here is making it sound as if she's making a solid claim that those are her, how do I put this? So that they're making it seem like she's just blatantly said those are the things. Like she's always kind of leaving it more open-ended than that. More like, I wouldn't doubt that that's not even his real name. And what is she doing working for that event? Things like that, drawing up questions. She draws up questions, but she also stirs up speculation. But they're making it sound like she's confident that those were the cases. And I can see where, the lines get blurred there, I don't know if that makes any sense, but when I'm watching both videos, which we're going to get to Candace's in a little bit, it just seems like there's these crossovers that are going to call for a constant fight, and it's going to be really interesting to see them go at it when they get together. And hopefully, I think it's going to be a great video or interview, but hopefully we get some truth in here. Let's keep going.
Candace has suggested the Utah Valley University event was unusual, and its details suggested a, quote, inside job. She has claimed that foreign aircraft have followed Erica Kirk around the country, and that Turning Point has lied about this happening. She has accused us of lying about Charlie wanting Erica to take over for him if he died. She has suggested Charlie's security team intentionally denied him first aid after the shooting to ensure that he died. She has raised suspicions about the head of our technical team because he took an SD card out of a camera. She has spread absurd claims that Tyler Boyer, who we just had on the show, sexually abuses male interns. She has suggested that TPUSA faith-affiliated pastors, like theologian Frank Turek, who we'll have on in a moment, and Pastor Rob McCoy, are part of a military, quote, infiltration of Turning Point, either because they are veterans or because they have family members who are. Even if not everyone has been named specifically, though, Candace has effectively tarred everyone here with complicity in Charlie's death by repeatedly saying he was, quote, betrayed by, quote, everyone. She has said Charlie's murder, quote, had to be approved by Charlie's friends, and then suggested those friends might have her murdered too for, quote, knowing the truth. She has made claims of financial impropriety and fraud at Turning Point, adding up into the millions of dollars, which, again, is not true. Charlie made sure the organization was audited by a third party every year. He personally reviewed and he signed off on every expense report, and literally every single bill paid by the organization down to a single United States dollar. We have never missed a 990 deadline. Candace has made other stranger allegations involving French paratroopers in maroon shirts, Egyptian Air Force planes flying out of Provo, Utah, and potential underground assassins traveling through unseen tunnels. At one point in early November, she started wildly throwing suspicion on members of Utah Valley's soccer team for wearing hoodies. I could go on. There is always something new coming up, and none of it ever pans out.
Okay, so, when they paint it like that, it does seem wacky. It seems crazy, guys. Some of the accusations of the people wearing purple, the way she does this is she says, isn't it weird that, or why would they do this, or why do they look different, or why are they wearing all the same color? I want to know why. She's asking questions, but they're saying she's implying, terrible things that, that are baseless. And quite honestly, unless you guys have seen the truth, I haven't. I don't really know where she's coming from with a lot of that stuff. It's very curious. It's very interesting of her take. She's very obsessed with this because she's lost her friend. I get it. I understand it. But man, it really raises a lot of problems for Turning Point, especially when you call for all of their donors to ask for a refund. Not only did Charlie work so hard, dedicate his life to this, left a legacy for his family, changed the world or changed this country from, starting with the young people in universities. And, basically he trailblazed, he created a new path for young conservatives, for young Christians to speak out and speak up. And you're going to attack his organization, especially when his wife now is the one running it. That's where I draw the line. And that's where it makes me upset, where it's like, hold on a second. Do you care for his legacy? Do you care for everything that he stood for? And if you did, why would you attack his very organization that he basically died working for? Wearing a freedom shirt, riding along with Turning Point staff members, friends and family, people he trusted, people that he kept close to him, attacking those very people. Now, grieving looks very different for a lot of people, and it can be very difficult for someone like Candace, who's very strong-willed and strong-minded. But when you get into this level of attacks, this level of extremism, you start to look and sound crazy. But let me just back up and say something, because I know there's a lot of Candace Owens freedom fighters, or whatever you guys call yourselves. I'm not really in that camp or either camp. I'm just kind of here doing my thing. She does have some good points and questions that I want answers to myself. So I'm not going to deny she's like completely, I'm not going to say she's completely wrong, but there's some things that are just a little bit crazy, and a lot of it's getting wacky now. The last one is she went to Dolly World. Apparently there's some pictures floating around that she was in Dolly World the week that she said she was going to take a break because there was a hit on her. Why would you go to such a public place if France or some government is after you when they can just take you out easily? And those are the things. There's a couple ways to look at this. She's being lied to. Turning Point staff, you all have to find out, who are these leakers? Who are these sources speaking to Candace Owens personally, and get rid of them, because they're betraying Charlie. The true betrayal are those that are saying things and exaggerating and probably causing more drama than needed in this situation, talking to Candace from within. And they're spreading rumors and spreading lies. I believe that there's other people that are outside of the realm of this that are calling, and they're tipsters or sources that we'll never hear or see from. She does cite some of them and give out some names. But man, you really got to make sure that you're getting some solid information, because I think it can lead you down these crazy rabbit holes. Let's take a look at what she says. She's fired up. She accepts this challenge. I got a few minutes left. She's all in on this and says, let's go.
And we're supposed to believe you're doing this because you're his friend? Because you're committed to truth? You sat there and allowed the very people who pressured Charlie towards the end of his life to try to claim his whole legacy, and you're pretending we are the ones that are immoral? You're upset because you got caught lying. You're upset because you got caught with your pants down, but you cannot blame me for that, okay? These were your own errors. These were your own lies. And I was not going for a single second to let up on the pressure. In fact, I have been so strategic that I have been holding on to certain information, hoping that you would acquiesce to have a public conversation, because I want to look you in the eye and I want to challenge you to lie to me, because I care deeply about what happened to Charlie on that day. I don't think we're getting the truth. And I do believe that because you are not forthcoming about the information that you have, about Charlie texting you guys and saying that he thought he was going to be assassinated that very next day. Okay? The day that he died, Charlie knew, said he thinks he was going to be killed tomorrow. And you guys are sitting on that information. So I'm the right person. Yeah. I'm the right person to sit across from you and to ask you questions, right? Some things that you told me on that day, they're not adding up. I think the entire world would like to see this discussion. I think you can do it in Charlie's honor. I'll sit there. You pick a place and time. We could have done this today, by the way. You didn't have to read all that. Okay. We all have tech. We could have done a live stream. We could schedule a live stream. We can raise money for Turning Point USA if you promise to answer every question that I have. Okay. And it's not hard. It's not difficult if you are telling the truth to answer questions. When you are emoting so much and you're upset at the inquiry and you're playing this game like you're David Hogg and, well, I survived Parkland, so how dare you question my authority on anything? Not a good long-term strategy. It's not going to be effective long-term. And I think you're learning that lesson, because 3 months on, with the entire mainstream media on your side and attacking me, which you guys didn't even stand up for me when you knew they were lying about me, you stayed mum. That in and of itself, you should be ashamed of. You should be ashamed to sit across from people who did everything they could to stop Charlie's rise, breaking bread with them and refusing to have a conversation with me. And you know that I cared about Charlie.
So it sounds like she and Turning Point have a lot to work through, you guys. It looks like Candace Owens is a woman scorned. She is not happy. She says she's willing to sit across the table, the couch, the podcast mics, whatever it is, and have this discussion. So we're going to just pause there, because I don't want to get too further into this, because we can go back and forth. But we'll pause there, because I want to let this kind of happen, right? Let's see where the chips fall. Let's see where the truth comes out. Let's see if she believes the things that they say, and let's see if Turning Point can trust Candace. To me, the closer we get to like midterms, and then we get to a presidential election again, if the right side of things do not figure it out and cannot stay united, we could be in a world of hurt. When it comes to elections, when it comes to who becomes Congress, Senate, even president in 3.5 years, this all matters. Everybody needs to work out their differences and get on the same page. I do think, though, it's going to heat up. If it gets better, it's going to get a lot worse before it even gets close to being better. So I'll only show this because we have some sort of relationship with Turning Point and all those, especially the faith community. As a matter of fact, we'll be visiting with them in December, or, pretty soon for AmFest, which we're in December already, by the way. Anyways, so, this is important to us. This is important because we love Charlie, and we did some partnerships with Charlie in the sense that we participated in the pastoral roundtables, went to AmFest. Some of us even went door knocking and doing canvassing for Turning Point. So there's a lot of stuff that to us is important, and I think that's why this conversation is important, because we all want to know the truth. I want to know what happened to Charlie. I mean, we know what happened to Charlie, but I want to know how this guy got on a roof, was able to pull off the shot, was able to get off the roof and hide and throw the gun away, and then he had to be turned in. Cash Patel made it seem like they got a hold of him and found him, when actually this person turned himself in. He was still on the loose. They kept saying in 33 hours, we were able to close this case. Well, somebody put pressure on Taylor Robinson, whatever his name is, to turn himself in. Now, I guess you can say the apparatus itself or the function of the FBI worked great. That's wonderful, especially if he's the shooter. But there's video out there, there's eyewitnesses, there's accomplices probably, and there's communication on text, email, web searches. There's a lot of data and I'm sure evidence that we have yet to see. And when that starts to come out, I believe we'll start to get some answers. Now, in the sense of Candace, she's got to do something about producing more evidence. She's got the biggest, the largest audience in the conservative world, as we all know. And she's convincing a lot of people that there's more to this story. And maybe there is, but we're going to have to start seeing some solid evidence really soon. Because I think it's like, this is really divisive. I believe that it hurts people in the Turning Point world. It hurts people that are close to Charlie. I can't imagine how Mrs. Erica Kirk feels as a widow, as a mother to his children. Being heavily scrutinized for the way she walks on stage or hugs the vice president or the things she says or the way she mourns. Just because I don't mourn that way or you won't mourn that way doesn't mean someone else like Erica does. She lives a very public life, and now it's even more public and under a microscope. So, there should be some sense of respect, right? To me, some sense of like, let's just kind of honor Charlie's legacy, let the judicial system work its way through, and hopefully righteousness will prevail, and hopefully truth does come out. I can appreciate all the private investigators and all those that kind of are able to find information out and pull it to the forefront. But man, I do think you got to be careful on how you put that out there when you have millions and millions of followers and probably billions of views over a long periods of time, because this type of information can be damning, could be hurtful to innocent people. Mikey McCoy is just, he's this young kid, man. He's in his 20s, married early or at a young age. He's doing everything that Charlie kind of just said, this is what you should do. Get married young, have kids, as many as you can, and live the American dream. And you're going after some people that are basically an apprentice or an understudy or, someone who's being trained and mentored by Charlie, who loved Charlie, who experienced his death, the tragedy right there in front of his face, and going after the way he walks away and how he's on the phone and how he responds to all of this stuff. From what we get out of Turning Point and the people at Turning Point that know the situation very close, he was awesome in a sense that he made sure that things got done very quickly and efficiently, because that's what he's good at. And I believe that's why God put him there. So, and then, Candace is starting to attack pastors and Pastor John, I cannot say his last name, but he was the one that was fighting against all the nasty books that go into public libraries for schools. She started going after him because he's going after her. It's just becoming so divisive. So how do we lock in, as they say, and make sure that we're not being so divisive? Yes, somebody told me in the comments not too long ago, this is called asking questions. Yeah, I believe we should ask all the right questions. We should make sure that we ask questions to find out the truth. So important. I don't deny that one bit. But when you have such a voice, when you have such an influence, and you're going so hard at everything that Charlie Kirk built because you think there's another truth out there, I just think it does more harm than good. But hey, we're in America, and for once, freedom of speech has been there and available for all of us, because by now, a lot of us would have been deplatformed. A lot of things can't be said. I mean, we still have to be careful, but there's a lot more freedoms than we used to have, especially 4 years ago when we were getting shut down during the pandemic. I mean, we had Facebook, Meta, even TikTok still has some deplatforming stuff, YouTube especially. We have some of our conservative friends that are coming back, and they are ready to rock and roll. We got our good friend, Jerome Davison, who is back on YouTube after getting his account shut down and deplatformed and demonetized. Now he's back. So we have made good strides in the right direction. And it's made opportunities for someone like Candace to make a fortune off of her videos in this conversation. Let's be honest. #1 podcaster on Charlie Kirk's name. Top conservative voice right now on what's happened to Charlie Kirk and her attacks on TPUSA. So there's no doubts about that, right? You know that's happening. You know that is actually that's a fact. She is banking on her views, her monetization, and this conversation. So there is a benefit to keep this going. Let's just say that much. And, kudos to Turning Point. They just try to move on and do what they do best, right? There's work to be done. I know this for a fact. There are boots on the ground trying to get people of righteous backgrounds and moral values elected into office. And I can appreciate that very much because we personally fought for the same thing. And we're hoping to open our doors again for public roundtables at our church for public communications and conversations with people that are trying to gain office, whether it be the state house or the governor or the Senate seats or congressional seats, all the way up. We've even had the vice president come through our building. So it doesn't stop there. And we're going to just keep going. That's our fight. That's our commission. And we will always fight for truth. We will always fight for righteousness. And we will continue to fight for the gospel like Charlie Kirk did. All right, everybody. I want to thank you guys for joining us on this very short podcast. We're going to do a longer show tomorrow on the news, on what's happening with Candace and Turning Point USA. And we're going to continue to honor Charlie, but we're going to continue to preach the gospel because that's what's important. The gospel of Jesus Christ, the one who came to take the sins of this world so that you and I can be free. And so if he fought for you and I, we will fight for him and righteousness. You might say it's hard to, have good in our government. Well, that's true, but we will always fight for the better good of our country, this nation, and the gospel. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We will talk to you soon. God bless.